How's everyone doing? I know. I need a little animation here. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Does the audio looks good? Screen looks good. Nice. All right. I'm going to give just a few minutes to let people filter in, and then we'll start. All right. All right. So we have a pretty good list of things I think that have come up that are our yeah, we have a pretty good list, I think, of things to talk about. I'm trying to, I want your guys' feedback. I'm trying to focus it a little bit, have a little bit less of the things, like just random things that I found interesting, maybe. I don't know if you guys like those, so give me that feedback. I have two articles to go over that I thought would be fun to go over together. I would say reacts, but they're not really reacts. It's like Amazon released their Prime Day statistics. I thought those are always interesting statistics, not necessarily something to react about. I mean, maybe there's a reaction. I don't know, but it might be fun to go over and talk about together. That being said, remember if you have an article that you'd like me to read that you think might get me excited, yeah, make sure to bring it. I don't want to read it ahead of time, so like that's good. Um, I like uh, I like being surprised. There was a couple things in the cloud. You know what? This week wasn't as big as I. We only have a few things in uh, machine learning. Um, We have only a few things in machine learning to go over. We only have a few things in security to go over. The clouds were pretty light as well. Honestly, this is a pretty light week. I have a few articles that I saw that I'll also share that I think were pretty good. And other than that, not too much. Not too much. So we'll get to spend some time on those articles that I think would be fun to read together, unless you guys all have one that you'd like to share with me. All right. I guess we will start with security. Like we have said, can we go over them quicker? We've been previously hung up on things that were then described later on in the article. Absolutely. That's good feedback. Thanks. I'll take it. All right, I saw this. Let's jump into it. I saw this. This is from New York Times. I don't have a subscription to it, so I could only see the title, but I did some searching for you all to find another place that did have something on it. So, U.S. hunts Chinese malware that could disrupt American military operations. More on it. It wasn't surveillance malware. It was looked like it was more malware that was supposed to be disruptive. And I guess it was found out in Guam, which kind of makes sense. So I guess there's been some stuff into it. They didn't release a lot of stuff, so there's not a whole lot to really go and say on it, other than that, honestly. Um, I saw this. So Socket is an interesting company. So they're announcing a 20 million Series A, but like their goal is to try to help with the open source supply chain pipelines. So this is why I'm bringing it up insecurity. It's not really about them raising 20 million. It's more about them, talking about what they're trying to do. But that's what they're trying to do. So I've been watching them. So I'm going to be interested in seeing what they do with this. To try to help make a safer ecosystem. It's still very early, so like it's not groundbreaking yet, but I'm interested in seeing this. All right, so this is one that I'm going to actually put in that I saw. I'll put a link in for you all. If you're on AWS and you use AWS's System Manager, this was kind of interesting. So the benefits attackers gain by using the SSM agent as a rat. Rats are horrible. We've covered this. Rats are the worst. So rats are remote access Trojans. If you weren't aware, that's what a rat is. But basically, they can abuse the SSM agent. So the systems manager, which is the SSM agent, to give you a rat. Nobody wants a rat. So if you're using AWS, and especially if you're using their system, make sure to read this, because this goes into some detail on it. So it was a pretty good article. I would recommend it. The last thing that I saw, something kind of interesting. Akamai, the company that bought Linode for $900 million, unveils the API security solution to stop API attacks and detect abuse. So basically, Cloudflare for Akamai. Now, if you're in Linode, this might make sense to put this on. I know Akamai does other things as well than just Linode. I don't really know what else Akamai does, to be honest. I know that they're a software company. I don't follow them that much, other than Linode. But yeah, so it's basically Cloudflare. You can think of it as a Cloudflare protecting. I know Cloudflare does a lot of things, but I was talking about their core thing. Basically a WAF for your application. So I know they call it a WAP, but it's really a WAF for your APIs. Which, yeah, whatever. And that was it for security. Did you guys see anything else for security that we could talk about? I didn't see anything else amazingly interesting happening. Yeah, I didn't see anything amazing. So I guess we can jump into cloud news now. All right, so in the cloud news, there wasn't a ton. We'll talk about some, especially we have some spicy AWS news coming out. A couple spicy AWS's things. So yeah, let's jump into that. There's a new 7th generation general purpose Amazon EC2 instance, the M7i Flex and the M7i, that are joining the ranks. So these are general purpose compute. They're supposed to be kind of a good balance of everything. So they kind of suck at everything, but don't suck really bad at anything. So if you're looking for a new general compute, these are here. So they're supposed to be a little bit better at the price performance rate. I think, let's see. Yeah, like 75% better price performance, with a 5% lower prices. So They're just replacing the older generation with something a little bit more performant. So yeah, cool. So yeah, if that's what you're looking for, if you leverage general purpose instances, they're out. They they're also opening a new region in Tel Aviv. So the Tel Aviv region in Israel. I guess it was a $7.2 billion. They didn't state that in here that I saw. Maybe they did. I didn't read the whole thing, to be honest, but I did see that it was $7.2 billion. The region they were launching. So, if you're an Israel company, you probably already know. But if you didn't, there's your news. All right, to get to the spicy AWS stuff. AWS and IBM come out in support of Iceberg in table format face-off. So if you're looking for your table format face-off, IBM and AWS are throwing their whole weight behind the Apache Iceberg tables. If you don't know what Apache Iceberg is, it's a way for data analysis, a format for your tables, and pretty much, this is what they're going for. So yeah, I thought that was kind of spicy. I thought that was kind of interesting. I don't know if you guys get as excited as I do about how you store your data on physical disk. I think people just don't like it enough. It's a really interesting topic. It's pretty cool. All right, I guess nobody else does. So we're going to go on to the really spicy news then. Is AWS IPv4 addresses cost too much, so you're going to pay. Starting next year, so I guess 2024, if you want an IPv4 and not an IPv6, AWS is going to charge you for it. So I guess they already obtaining a IPv4 address has gone up more than 300%, and basically they're wanting to push you away from using them. Now, it's not a whole lot. This is not going to break your bank, but it does. It comes at half a penny per hour. I did not run the calculation on that, but half a penny per hour, 400 or 740 hours per month. I think that's 28 days, 29 days. You're talking about a couple $100 per IP4 address. So if you're not prepared, they want you to switch over to I mean, honestly, how many IPv4 addresses do you have? Probably not a ton. So it's probably not a big deal. But it is something, especially for smaller people, to think about. Because if you're going to go out and deploy a service, if I'm on some free tier and I have to pay $200 for my IPv4 address, that's going to basically ruin it. Now, what you can do is you can easily basically terminate a public IPv6 address, add a load balancer into your IPv4. So you don't necessarily have to go jump out, switching everything to IPv6 to handle this. I just thought that this was really important. That's why I said it was spicy. I don't know that that's really spicy, but this is really important because it could cost you a lot if you're not thinking about it and you heavily leverage a lot of IPv4s. So you've been warned. So I do believe the free tier, you get one IPv4 address. I do believe you get one. It's just if you get a second one. And I think they did all the new pricing, but it's all staying the same. They've always charged for idle IP addresses and whatnot. So the other stuff has always stayed the same. Let's see. The AWS free tier for EC2 will include one IPv4 address for 12 months. So that's not a forever free. 12 months. Got it. That was it for AWS. Do you guys see anything else for AWS? Nope. Moving on. All right. What's new in big table observability? I actually have a bone to pick with this article because The big thing here was that they added observability to your big table queries. So basically, they added metrics to the big table queries to help you see where expensive queries are. The problem they came up with was I lost it. I was on it. Yes, IPv6 is free on AWS. There's no cost to IPv6. The basic problem with this is it gave you basically like the general approach to fixing these. So basically, you can narrow your scope, you can change your schema, you can denormalize your data. I need to make a video on denormalizing data because it's great and it's horrible at the same time. You're gonna pay for your basically. You need to not denormalize your data until your scale mandates that you denormalize your data, like till you have to. Because when you do, you're going to have to hire more engineers. There's an actual cost to maintaining denormalized data. There's a cost, there's infrastructure and whatnot. And so, like, I think honestly that denormalization of data should only be done when you need to denormalize data, like when it's an actual requirement, not a pre-optimization. I think it's a bad pre-optimization to denormalize your data. And then caching. So like they basically didn't really like you have to add your metrics if you know that you have a slow query. And then their whole thing is basically the standard like how do you they didn't give you any real good tools to do this. It's like narrow your query scope, changing your schema, denormalizing data, and caching your common queries. Like that is the standard things. Like don't write a blog article on it. Like this was a big deal. I don't know. It came off as like, and then their thing is like sometimes you just have to add more CPU and stuff. So like they're like pay us more money if that doesn't work. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like it a whole lot. So that was pretty much. Basically, RDB isn't slow, but you know what? I'd love to go into this when they say that because at the 99th percentile, you can perform single digit millisecond queries, which means 9 milliseconds. 9 milliseconds. That is not fast. That is not fast. That is not a blazing fast. At the 99th percentile, if you want to be a fast database, you need to be sub milliseconds. If it's not sub milliseconds, it's not fast. It's not slow. Like single digit millisecond queries is not slow. I'm not saying it's slow, but it's also not fast. That's not a blazing fast database. I know that they're bragging about it here, but like I can point you to a bunch of databases that can do this better, faster. All right. So there was this thing, attack path simulation, which I think is actually pretty cool. Which is basically now it's in Security Command Center Premium, which means you not only do you pay for Security Command Center Premium, you actually pay for the attack path simulator as well. But I think it's a pretty cool tool. So if you read up on the attack path simulator, I'm going to post this because I do think it's actually pretty cool. Sorry, one second. It basically, as it says, simulates attack paths and finds or tries to automatically find vulnerable attack paths to your API. So whether that is a misconfiguration, so it's actually crawling for configuration, I believe it says that down here somewhere. Yeah, misconfiguration. But also where if you might have a API group that's not under authentication, that should be. So there's a lot of different things that it looks for. It's kind of cool. So it just kind of crawls and finds attack paths in your application. I thought this was awesome. Yeah. Other than that, not much from GCP. We'll go on to Azure. Azure released this, optimize the cost of .NET and Java applications migration to the Azure cloud. I thought that this was going to be rewritten in Go and Rust, but it wasn't. So I was surprised. I was surprised, as just about everyone else was. I'm sorry, that was a joke. Don't get too angry at me. So basically, they talked through this. I'm going to put this just in case it's somebody that's actually interested in this. I'm not going to go over everything, but they went through some of the things that they could do to help optimize your app automatically through the Azure App Service. That will help reduce, do cost mitigation and cost optimization for your application. So I thought that this was a cool article because I like seeing I like seeing clouds that actually try to save you money, which Azure seems to have tried. Now, I'm not saying that they're not there to make money off of you. They seem to actually, like, through their cost center. And again, Azure is my worst one, but just from my reading of it and keeping up on their news, they seem to release a lot of stuff to help you manage and mitigate your cost, which I think a lot of companies actually struggle with. And so I think it's a good thing. One thing that I did see was Azure load testing now supports JMeter backend. So this is in public pre. Oops. I got those switched around. So Azure load testing is now generally available, and this came out with Azure load testing. So I think this is pretty cool if you're trying to actually load test. JMeter, I don't do a whole lot of Java, but JMeter is a very fantastic tool for load testing. I know that there's other things like K9S that are not K9S. Maybe it's K9. I'll remember it. It's from Grafana. K6. That's what it is. K6. Thank you. K6 is also like API testing. It's not just load testing, but you can also do some like load testing type of stuff through it. You can run a predefined workload. That it doesn't meter as well as JMeter from the times that I've used it, but it's pretty powerful as all of those things are. So there's a couple things, but it's really nice to see like the cloud actually supporting an off by 3 error. I'm worse than a computer. I'm sorry. I don't think that a good name is K and a number because there's so many things with a K and a number. I guess it's K8, K9, K6, but it's confusing. My poor simple mind. This was not me hating on K6. I like K6. I couldn't recall the name right off the top of my head. Oh, K0 and K3. My gosh, that's right. That's right. Dutch, you're absolutely right. K1 is a mountain. My goodness. Or is that K2? No, K2 is K2 makes skis, don't they? I think K2 is a ski manufacturing company. No, that's a game company. K2 Games, I think. Anyways, like I said, please don't do K and another number. Like, I can't do it. I won't review your product because I just won't be able to remember that it exists. Dutch, it's good to see you. All right, the last thing here for Azure News is public preview of the Azure Chaos Studio. You guys know that I love chaos engineering. Now, you know what? I've been rethinking how I support things because I do love chaos engineering, but I think it's something like Kubernetes. You need a large enough team. You already need a service-based architecture. And if you don't have those things and you're a small team, you shouldn't be pushing towards chaos engineering on Kubernetes, on those types of things, because that is just too much. So I'm trying to, I'm breaching like 3,000 followers on YouTube, and I'm trying to rethink how I promote some of those things because I feel like I could inadvertently push people into things that are cool and useful in a case to using something that actually just slows them down. So I do love chaos engineering, and I'm excited that Azure is supporting it. AWS does now as well. And I'm excited about this Azure Chaos Studio. I think it's pretty cool. But I do want to preface my chaos engineering enthusiasm for the fact that chaos engineer responsibly. Chaos engineer responsibly, please. All right, so let's jump into machine learning. Machine learning came out with a couple cool things. Well, I guess really only Meta released something cool and interesting. There was a couple articles that I wanted to point here to. Is that AI researchers say they found virtually unlimited ads. I mean, unlimited ways to bypass Bard and ChatGPT's safety rules. So there's also a lot of ads here, but this was the only article that I could really find that condensed the thing. Portworx torpedo. I'll have to check it out. That's cool. I do like chaos engineering. I just think that I have talked to too many people that are in 20 people teams that are also trying to do microservice, service architecture, chaos engineering, and it's like, no, please stop. Let's so anyways, this was kind of fantastic. We've seen it ourselves. I think Russell posted a thing where it was like trying to get away around the censorship, which was pretty awesome, like getting a secret from ChatGPT, which was pretty cool. This probably should have been in security, but you know what? People joined later and I wanted them to see it. The coolest thing that came out was introducing AudioCraft, a generative AI tool for audio and music. So I haven't actually gotten to use it yet, but it was open sourced. It was open sourced like Llama's open source, which is not quite the same as maybe some of us think of open source, but it is free for you to go out there and use. So I think if I can swing it, if we can run this locally like we can, maybe my Twitch alerts will have to be, the sound will have to be powered by AI, because that would be fun. On a more terrifying note, Darkbert is a GPT-based malware, trains up on the entire dark web. So we're gonna have to try Darkbert. Just joking, probably not. We'll see. I don't know what I think about that. Okay, Alibaba open sources its own 7 billion parameter AI model. Now, I couldn't actually this is the only thing that I could read on it because the other stuff that I was reading on it was in Chinese, and I chronically don't know how to read Chinese very well. Is there any realistic audio generative AI that can read books? I don't know about that. The interesting thing about this is it should be able to run locally pretty easily at the 7 billion parameters. And again, I couldn't read anything directly from Alibaba itself, but it was close to matching Llama's larger models as far as accuracy. Now, we all know that I disagree with how people measure accuracy in AIs, because it's kind of a fake metric. That's why I've worked very hard on building a different metric. Yeah. All right, introducing code referencing for GitHub Copilot. So GitHub actually released 2 blog articles on this. Smarter, more efficient coding. Copilot goes beyond Cortex with improved AI model. So basically, Copilot said that it got better. Now, I'll have to verify this because last time they said this, I actually think it got worse. Through our tests, we actually saw a drop in Copilot's applicable coding. It passed more of those tests that I've said that I disagree so much with, but that's really not as useful as I think many people might think it is. So yeah. That is it for AI. Did anybody else see anything else in AI? I know that there's some regulation stuff being talked about in the US, but I haven't seen anything else on that. Dutch, if you're still on Tuesday, I'm I'm trying to reproduce our Golang error on Tuesday to submit to the Go. I was kind of furious with it, and then I realized maybe nobody's ever run into the bug of a corrupted like maybe that specific scenario has never happened. And so I was like, my duty is to make a highly contained, reproducible problem and submit it to them before I get angry. Ooh, nice. Anyway, so you should join Tuesday because that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to try to reproduce our problem with Go Workspaces, because all I can read is Go Workspaces is the solution to a multi-module thing in Visual Studio Code. So I kind of want to adopt it, but I'd like to get it fixed. But I want to be part of the solution, not the problem. All right. I will have to give that a AI on the command line. All right. We have 2 community contributions to the next section. The next section is general engineering stuff, and we have 2 community contributions to it. The first one is something that I like doing on my YouTube channel, and this was, both of these were by Dutch. Thank you very much, Dutch, for doing this. The first one is build your own X. I know that I do this slowly on YouTube, and we're going to actually have our next database one coming out very soon. I've been working on some animations very hard on that one. And we're going to build our own cloud. I have my first one on building our own cloud coming out very shortly. And so this is a table of build your own X, and it has a bunch of things. I've clicked through some of these, and they're pretty good as like a very basic understanding of each thing. And so I wanted to share it. I think it's pretty cool. So that's our first community contribution. Thank you guys for this sharing. This is a great time to share stuff. This is the general engineering stuff, and this is where I'd like to share these types of things that we have. So if you're trying to understand one of these, like a 3D renderer, augmented reality, BitTorrent client, blockchain, cryptocurrency, bot, whatever it may be, this is a build your own. It's pretty cool. They have different things in each one of these, so different types of things. So like an introduction to ray tracing or OpenGL rendering. So they have a bunch of different things in each one of these. So if you're trying to understand these, I think one of the best ways is to build your own. Not a fully functional production one, but this is really awesome. The other one here is one that's just been recommended. AI for the command line, built for pipelines. So you know what? We're going to try this. Now, I don't know much about it because I was just given it. Okay, so OpenAI compatible endpoints. So we can basically point at our own OpenAI. That's pretty awesome. So we will fall back to, I think I'll have to I'll have to have my own ChatGPT key. So I'll have to use my own API. But this is pretty cool. We'll have to give it a test. Get ChatGPT in the command line. Awesome. On that, for all of you dirty Linux lovers out there, we have systemd 254. Now, what they have done is fast startup. Now, I don't know why we need a fast startup. I'm releasing this. If you have a really old computer, maybe this is really fantastic. We're going to get it quickly in Arch. Arch starts terribly fast for me. I haven't ever thought, I wish it started faster. But it's also because I don't have like a window management system or anything else like that. So maybe I'm a little spoiled. But you can expect to see a little bit faster booting. From the systemd 254. So that's pretty cool. Another thing that I saw out there, a really popular tool is CodeCov, and CodeCov did this, is now open source. Now they got a bunch of backlash, and I wish people wouldn't have given them the amount of backlash that I saw happening, because they got a lot of hate. And the reason they got a lot of hate is they actually didn't release it under a open source license. They released it under the BUSL, which per the open source initiative is not an open source license, mainly because you cannot discriminate against fields of endeavor, which is why the SSPL is also not an open source license, because the SSPL says you can do anything you want with us except host it as a service. So this is like what MongoDB says. You can run MongoDB all day long. It's fine. You just can't provide MongoDB as a service. So that's why the SSPL is. That's why CodeCovs is not as well. Now, the BUSL, I think, is actually a pretty cool way. I am not upset about this. First, CodeCov wasn't open source in the first place. It is now, or source available. And under the BUSL, you can run it yourself. You just can't provide it as a service. Again, that's pretty cool. The other thing is, after 2 years, it goes to the Apache 2. So their code, after 2 years, falls into the Apache 2. I think this is actually a really cool way of doing your open source, because it means that people can't provide you as a service and eat your cake at how you pay for your engineers, but you as a person could individually run CodeCov. You as a business could run CodeCov yourself, and I'm actually kind of warming up to the BUSL. And if you went out of business, it goes open source per the licensing. So I think that this is actually pretty fantastic. So people hated on them a lot because they said they are open source. They did redact it and talk about it, and they apologized for saying that they were open source in the light that they were not the OSI definition of open source per definition 6, which is fine. Now, what do you guys think on that topic? Do you guys like me talking about this type of stuff in the news? Would you prefer me to skip this type of stuff? I don't know. It's up to you. I would love the feedback. Maybe I talk about the things too often or too much, and maybe I should go faster, because I kind of delayed on this a little bit, talking about the whole scandal as I said scandal. It wasn't a scandal to me. I mean, yes, they didn't realize that they weren't technically open source by the OSI. I kind of felt bad for them. All right. Let's talk about a little bit more Linux. Linus Torvalds, our favorite and dearest man of many insults, released a good statement. He is kind of fed up with the FTPM issues. So basically, Windows obviously released a requirement on TPM, which is a security check, a security module, which I actually was in support of, because it actually works to secure your hardware. So I don't dislike it, and it's every modern hardware. What Linus Torvalds is, he's very frustrated with AMD's FTPM bugs. And he actually is calling for Linux to just disable the feature, period. So basically, on Linux devices, not to support AMD's FTPM. That's pretty bad. I haven't followed all the bugs, but like, it's been a while. This is what, like 7 years since AMD. I looked it up, since they released their TPM. So like, it's not a new thing, and for them to continue to have bugs up to this day and age seems pretty fantastically horrible. I guess it's causing a lot of work in the Linux server. So yeah. Along that, in the Linux lines of news, we have Fedora Asahi Remix announced as a flagship distro for Apple Silicon. Now, I have been wanting to run Linux on my M1s. I think the M1s or M2 Mac Minis would make a fantastic home lab for Linux Kubernetes. I think it would be like literally the most fantastic thing. So as soon as I can get a Linux distribution that's super stable, that just runs on Apple Silicon, I'm going to be super excited. So Does TPM have updatable firmware, or is it a flash? I don't know. I don't know if it's one. I find that a lot of security things have those things where it's like, no, as a security measure, you're not allowed to update the firmware. Like that is part of its security metrics. But I honestly don't know. I couldn't tell you. I'm happy to Google it though for you later. Built-in obsolescence, if not. I don't know. I'm not a security professional. I feel like it makes sense with some of those things that you don't want to be tampered with to purposely make it so that it can't be tampered with, which makes updating harder, I guess. I'm not a professional in that though. All right. So we talked a little bit about how we can't trust Google for anything. My biggest problem with Google Cloud is the lack of its reputation and its lack of making a production-ready cloud. But the biggest news here is Squarespace bought Google Domains for a lot of money, but Squarespace bought it. And I think Google shouldn't have even sold it, even if they were offered $300 million. But this happened. WordPress strikes back. WordPress, reclaim your Google domains. This is amazing. I'm not even going to do this, but as many of you know, Google Domains sold to Squarespace. And while we have mentioned maintaining prices for the first year, nothing says they won't increase them later. Transfer your domains to WordPress.com now, and we'll pay all transfer fees plus an extra year of your domain registration. So they're literally letting you transfer your Google domains to WordPress for free and giving you a free year of domains. There you go. I'm not sure that having them at WordPress is any better than having them at Squarespace, but yeah, this might get them more domains, more users than Squarespace got from buying Google domains, which for cheaper. Oh man. So anyways, I found this funny. Kind of a sad day. I saw this. So the XFS maintainer, so Derek Wong is stepping down. So created a new document to list what I think are within the scope of XFS, our shared goals and community roles, since I will be stepping down shortly. Now, I did not see a blog post from him. He might have one talking about why, but he has been a huge driver in the XFS space, so it's kind of sad to see him stepping down. I do wish him the best on his next journeys, whatever they may be. Yeah. Now, for all of you software engineers out here, we have new Figma plugins, converts designs to Angular and React Native. This is fantastic. This is what I've been asking for. I cannot write CSS for the life of me. If Figma would just do the heavy work, that would be awesome. And that's what they're going to do. I think that's really cool. I think that's really cool. All right, that was pretty much it. The only things I have left for this week are the 2 articles that I thought we could review. Basically, we have Prime Day 2023 to go over. AWS has released their Prime Day 2023. And their API first development, architecting applications with intentions, which seemed like an interesting article. I don't know. We talk about API first development. We talk about that, and I'd love to see their approach on this. This is a bunch of words that, like, everybody architects their applications with intention. I don't think there's one person that tries to design their application intentionally without thinking of their intentions. Like, I just don't. You might as well have dropped this. But talking about API first development, I think means a lot of different things to different people. So I'm interested in what they say here. And then, of course, Prime Day. It's very interesting to read these numbers. So, if you all like to join me, I'd like to cover the Prime Day numbers, see what they did. Always kind of fun. We all talk about scale, but it's always fun to see like real scale. Real scale. All right, Prime Day by the numbers. Block Store. The Prime Day event resulted in an increment of 163 petabytes of EBS storage capacity allocated. 15 trillion requests and 764 petabytes of data transferred per day. Per day. Gosh. One second. I need to do a calculation really quickly. So, if we had 1 gig Ethernet, that would be so if every switch had 1 gig Ethernet, we would need to ingest that. We would need 764 million switches to ingest that in an hour, or just a measly 64 million to ingest it in a day. I do 1 gig because that's what like most Ethernet is. Obviously, they have backbone switches that are much faster. Just trying to put it in perspective. Just your network switches. Anyways, sorry, I thought that was interesting. Interesting. That is a lot. We're almost past a petabyte of data. This was a 35% increase. 830 billion events in support of Prime Day. Okay, that actually doesn't seem that big. 830 billion events when you're talking about a petabyte of data. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here. With 15 trillion requests, they do a really good job at limiting their requests. Okay, so DynamoDB, blah 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 blah. Over the course of Prime Day, these sources made trillions of calls to DynamoDB API. Dynamo maintained high availability while delivering single-digit millisecond read. A single-digit millisecond read is not that amazing. Sub-millisecond is where it's at. And peaking at 126 million requests per second. Okay, maintaining single-digit millisecond responses while at 126 million requests per second is good. Let me rephrase. Single-digit millisecond reads at that request. Now, I'm guessing that they had read databases that they weren't writing to maintain that. And it depends on how much data is in this database, honestly. They're not saying that right there. No. Okay, so this right here, this is the difference between Google and AWS. This right here is the difference between Google and AWS and why I don't like Google services. Amazon builds everything on AWS. Amazon uses AWS for everything they make. That is like the one thing that they do really well. It is not only dog fooding, but it's making sure that you provide, it's a service architecture. Google doesn't have a service architecture and it destroys them. It is like their single worst thing. They do microservices without even understanding some of the benefits they could obtain from microservices. Google doesn't run on GCP. If Google did run on GCP, it would be a whole different cloud. And this right here is what makes AWS as good as it does. Because every team that builds a new product builds it on AWS. I'm sorry, but I honestly think that this is what sets AWS apart from GCP every single day. I think Azure does. I don't know as much about Azure, so I can't really speak, but I think Azure also does the service architecture better than GCP does. But comparing GCP versus AWS, this is 100%. Yeah. Amazon Aurora on Prime Day, 5,800 database instances running the Postgres compatible and MySQL compatible. Why are they running both? That's weird. This is like a really interesting detail. So like there's two reasons to run both. You started with MySQL and you've slowly been like migrating Postgres, or vice versa, honestly. Or like there's one little thing, there's actually a lot of detail in, because, or you could say that possibly they know when MySQL is better, like in what scenarios MySQL is more efficient, better than PostgreSQL. I don't know. I don't know, but for a company to run both like this is really interesting. Now it could be, again, just they started with MySQL and they're transferring, everything new is in Postgres. Again, I don't know for certain. But like that's kind of an interesting detail. SES sent 56% more email, delivering 99.8% of those emails. That's pretty good. They don't say how many emails. Like 56% more emails of like 200 emails is not actually that amazing, but being able to scale like that is pretty awesome. CloudFront handled peak load of 500 million requests per minute. That's a lot of load. I generally say you don't start scaling until you're like hitting your tens of thousands requests per minute. Like you can't really say you've scaled, but this is far beyond that. This is far beyond that. My Raspberry Pi can handle 1 million requests or 1,000 requests per second, or my computer can at least. Depends on the request, I guess, as well. We're just talking about the HTTP requests, so. SQS set a new traffic record by processing 86 million messages per second at its peak. That is pretty phenomenal. 70 million messages per second was the last time. 86 million. So SQS is effectively like their Kafka counter. Do you think it hosted on the free tier? You guys crack me up. All right. During Prime Day, Elastic Cloud. So EC2. So they're using Graviton. I think Graviton is the better price efficiency if you don't need. And you know what? Honestly, this is the great part of Go. If Go has done one thing really, really well, Go is fantastic to build for ARM or any different architecture. Honestly and seriously, like if it does one thing well, it's support. Like your service can run on ARM probably. Probably if you built a service, it can run on ARM. I don't think any other language has done that quite as well as Go. And it's cool to see. Now, I'm not saying that you can't do that with Rust, because you absolutely can, but I do think Go has done it way better. Their platform, their architecture support is just phenomenal. They calculated the energy usage, which to them is a direct cost saving. 60% less energy. I don't know how much they pay for electricity, but I know that electricity is a huge cost to data centers. So more than half of the energy. That's actually pretty awesome. That's actually pretty awesome. Amazon Pinpoint sent tens of millions of SMS messages to customers during Prime Day with a delivery rate. Okay. Guard duty. Okay. Well, cool. All right. Was that a good speed going through that? Did we talk too much about one, or did we stick on it too long? Let me know. I do actually value the feedback, because like I don't I don't sit in your shoes, so I don't know if I spent too much time talking about one thing or whatnot. That was some serious scale, dude. That is some serious scale. I do want to appreciate this scale. Like I said, like I have always said, when you're hitting like tens of thousands of requests per minute, being at like, okay, you actually understand some of the problems of scaling. These people are going through millions of messages per second, tens of 86 million messages per second. That is some. This is where like you get those hiccups, those transient hiccups in the network or something that causes those metastable errors, like where it just brings things to their knees. I can't believe engineers slept during this. That would be my worst thing. I would, if I was an Amazon engineer, I would hate Prime Day because I don't think I could sleep. I would feel hitting this type of scale. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. All right, an API first approach will lead to faster and more scalable approach to developing software without breaking as many things along the way. All right, move fast, break things. As developers on an agile team, we repeat these words constantly, always at first, right up until the moment when something actually breaks in production. They lost the in production. And then it turns out, despite all of our oft-touted slogans, what everyone really meant was move fast without breaking things. Why didn't we think of that sooner? I want to talk about API first development because I believe in API first approach. I think that they're talking about a service approach, but I could be wrong. That's what I'm guessing. Will lead to a faster, more scalable approach to developing software applications without breaking as many things along the way. What does API first development mean? API first development prioritizes the design and development of an API as the foundation of your entire architecture. This means that taking the extra care to treat your API as a product in its own right, even if it's only going to be consumed internally by your developer. This is a service. They're describing a service architecture, which I agree with. And you can even have a monolith in a service architecture. I think that's a good point here. But I do believe I think this is good. Okay, sorry, keep going. If it's only going to be consumed internally by your own developers, this might require a bit more planning and collaboration between stakeholders, but there's a lot of good reasons to invest a little bit of extra time upfront. Why API first development? More traditionally, tech companies often started with a particular user experience in mind when setting out to develop a product. The API was then developed in a more or less reactive way to transfer all the necessary data required to power that experience. More traditionally, tech companies often started with a particular user experience in mind when setting out to develop. Okay. The API was then developed in a more or less reactive way. While this approach gets you out the door fast, it isn't very long before you probably need to go back inside and rethink things. Without an API first approach, you feel like you're moving really fast, but it's possible that you're just running from the front door to your driveway and then back again without even starting the car. The API first development flips this paradigm by treating the API as the foundation for the entire software system. Let's face it, you are probably going to want to power more than one developer, maybe even several different teams, all possibly even working on multiple applications, and maybe there will even be an unknown number of third-party developers. Under these fast-paced and highly distributed conditions, your API cannot be an afterthought. I agree that like your API can't be an afterthought because that's why we get some really bad APIs. I mean, it's even easy to make a bad API without thinking enough about it. And like it's a hard balance to be how much time do we spend on developing an API versus actually coding the thing. Like it's a good balance to talk about. As a software system matures, its real value emerges from its integration into a more complex whole. Features and products are like a big, delicious, juicy fruit hanging off a branch. Your API is the entire freaking tree. How do I get started? Just imagine being responsible for AWS. They had to support that and every other customer. Yeah, dude, they couldn't drop the ball on AWS like the rest of the internet that uses AWS. Thankfully, probably all the other shopping sites had less traffic that use AWS. So you're feeling ready to dive into an API first development. Spectacular, trust me. And a little bit of extra upfront work. Oh, when somebody tells me, trust me, the little bit of extra work upfront will pay off big down the road, I start sweating. And you'll start seeing the impact almost immediately. The first step is to design and document your API. Okay, maybe. Don't worry, this isn't as complicated as it might sound. Just create an API spec file. I don't know. Whenever somebody tells me, don't worry, this isn't as complicated as it might sound, even when I say it in my own videos, I cringe a little. This file will serve as both blueprint and document your API. So I'm assuming they're talking about open API like a Swagger document. There are several varieties in common use today. Oh, gosh dang it. I need to just keep reading and not talk. We don't need to stress about which one to choose right now. The important thing is that all of these specifications provide standard and machine-readable representations of your API. This standardization plays dividends later by helping you collaborate better, work more efficiently, beef up security, and seamlessly integrate with external systems. Here's the best part. Writing these specs is actually pretty easy. If you can handle writing the actual server code for your API, then you will pick up these specifications in no time at all. It's a natural extension of what you already are doing. I have a problem actually with this. I do. We'll come back to it. This may all seem a bit time consuming at first. It is. But trust me, that small investment up front will save you heaps of time down the road. I don't think so. I disagree with this. Especially once you start leveraging the power of code generators. Okay, this I do get on board with. Those tools can do all sorts of cool stuff like generating SDK and server code for your API. Imagine making a change in one place and boom, it instantly updating across all your servers as well. I do like this. Wouldn't that save you time? That's, yeah, yep. All right, conclusion. Is this all? Okay, I'm upset. He said all this stuff was easy and then didn't actually back it up with anything. This is a short article. This is garbage. All right, I'm going to follow it up. Because I think it deserves some. Because I think a service architecture is good. Now, why I say here, this is a little bit of a pitfall. The specs are easy. The thing is, and this is the thing that I've seen, your spec isn't always right. That's the thing. And we can do this. If you guys would like, I can do a stream on this. You can generate your server code from the Swagger file. So like if we go to swagger.com, Swagger editor, you can go to the Swagger editor. You can generate a Swagger spec. Here's an example one. You can even then go and generate some stuff off of this. So you can use this to generate an API and even the server code. The problem is then you have to copy and paste that code into your code that already does something, and that can be super time consuming. The integrating that back in can be super time consuming. All right, sweet. I will put that into my to watch the video. So I think this is almost like microservices. Oh yeah, I did see Mux is back. It's on my list to go and do Mux. I actually watched this video. I've already watched it. I'm ahead of you. So what I find here is that like they say make an API first. And this is maybe okay if you already have a predefined thing. But the thing that I find out, and this is also kind of my argument against test-driven development. I think test-driven development works really well in a waterfall scenario where you have an entire design spec already ready out and going. But if you don't, and you want to go out there and build something and see if you can't get it working in a way, making tests, you're going to rewrite that. You're going to rewrite it 3 or 4 times. And if you make tests along the way that you then also have to rewrite, you're actually just adding to the burden of your rewrite. I think that there's a better approach with both of these things that are kind of like a I want to say business requirement test and API driven development. Not driven, but enforced. Basically, where as you go, you lock things in. And as you lock things in, like APIs and things like that, you start writing tests and things for those to solidify them, to force them to not change, to slow down development on those things. Because no, this is business logic. This is what the business said that they wanted, and this is how they want it to deal with. And so we can easily say we want those things as a test, as an API even. Now, if you don't have those, if you're a 10-person team and you don't have those, then you can't make an API for it. You can't make a test for it because you don't know. Sounds like BDD. I guess it's kind of, I hesitate to full sail jump on the BDD because I could make a video on it. I don't know. I'm going to put my foot in my mouth. If I say it live, I have to think about that. So you're right, Dutch, that it does talk about some of those things going into the base Golang, and we can talk about that. I can do a video on it. I don't think that's a big deal because Mux has value add like middleware and stuff like that on the end. But honestly, I think the reason Mux existed was that the standard library was so far gone. But I do like behavior-driven development better than I do test-driven development. Now, my problem with BDD, and I'm going to just say this at a really high level, the problem with BDD, if you go full sail on BDD, is that they go with things like, I don't like their testing frameworks. I really don't like BDD testing frameworks. I really don't like, I'm trying to think of what Geeko, the Go Geeko library. It's not Geeko. What is it? Gherkin. I hate Gherkin. That's what it is. I really don't like that. So if you're saying like BDD as the premise, it's like dependency injection. If you're talking about my function gets its dependencies in the function parameters and the function doesn't go get its stuff, I love dependency injection. If you talk about BDD as like a methodology, then I love BDD. But when you get to the tooling around BDD, I really don't like the tooling around BDD in general. I guess that's like, I don't know if I'm really quirky that way. Like, I love dependency injection. I hate the tooling in Java around dependency injection. Like, I vehemently dislike every dependency injection framework that I've ever used in Java. And maybe I haven't used Java for like 6 years, so maybe it's gotten better. I don't know. But like, just don't like it. All strict DDs are flawed the same way that all strict I actually like this. I like this take. All strict DDs are flawed the same way that all strict agile practices are flawed. I think that's right. You should take them and you should leverage them. Absolutely. I like that take. All right. Well, that's it for the news. Dutch, again, I would love your support on Tuesday night. Tuesday night, we are going to try to reproduce the Go Workspace failure in a way that we can send it to the Go Workspace team so that we can hopefully make it better for everyone. Instead of just getting angry that shouldn't happen, because it shouldn't happen because they were separate projects. But that's okay. We're going to make it better. Oh, I did. I actually meant to bring that in. I was busy when that was posted. I did see that. And that is sad for his friends and family. Let me pull that up. So the creator of Vim, somebody that revolutionized. Yeah. He died. And that's sad news. I don't know Bram very much. I don't know whether he was a good person, bad person, but friends, family, I'm sure are going to be sad. Yeah. I will try to watch and do nothing and break your Golang completely. Thank you, Dutch. Well, the whole point of Tuesdays is to actually reproduce it in a small self-contained project so that we can actually send, like, here are the steps to reproduce. I want to build a steps to reproduce because that functionality shouldn't happen. It just shouldn't. I was appalled that it happened. I was angry that it happened. And then I realized, like, I shouldn't be like the entire internet, and I should actually try to do my part to build up the community around Go. Even though it made me angry. That sucks, but maybe Vim. Honestly, I wonder if this will be the death of Vim. Because why would they want to get... I don't see a point in Vim getting closer to NeoVim. Because, like, if it gets closer to NeoVim, why have the different fork anyways? They're effectively the same thing, except one has a standard scripting language versus a purpose-built scripting language. I think Bram was a super smart person. Whether I agree with him having his own scripting language or not, I think it was yeah, smart guy. Yeah, he did. He did. So yeah, sad day for the community. Sad day for NeoVim, honestly. I mean, because you think of NeoVim as like this fork and whatnot, but NeoVim only exists because Vim existed first. Like, so honestly, like, it's a, yeah. Again, don't know anything about the guy as far as never met him. You know, it will be just like Linus Torvalds when he passes away. Jerk, yes, but also a sad day for Linux. Vim is on every distro versus NeoVim is always a download. You are correct. You are correct. Like I said, super impactful guy. Super impactful guy. Super impactful project. Super impactful project. Which I'm going to be learning better here soon. I'm going to be learning better. I know I'm a dirty Windows and Java developer that came over to... I saw the light, but I never learned Vim because I always worked in Visual Studio and Android Studio. So, like, when your entire career was in those for the first, like, 6 years... And then as you start to migrate to the light and work at those type of companies, you worked up in your career, so I didn't actually work in the code as much. So I never learned Vim. Not well. I can get out of Vim. I haven't gotten stuck in Vim for at least the last 3 days. I'm getting better about not getting stuck in Vim. Now, funny story. I got stuck in not Vim, the other thing that's like supposed to be easier. I got stuck in that like 3 years ago. I didn't even know what it was. Just closed my terminal. I was like, this is garbage. I know Vim. Notepad. I was doing like the colon. That's why Vim probably won't die. It was nano. That's what it was. Like, it was nano. I did a git thing, and I hadn't set Vim as the default, and it used nano, and I was like, what the crap is this? I had never seen it. In my entire life, I had never seen it. And I didn't realize it was control. Anyways, it took me, like, I did actually get out of it eventually, but I didn't even know what it was called. I was just like, what garbage is this? It's not Vim. I know how to get out of Vim. Give me Vim. Anyways. Come join me Tuesday if you like to see me cry trying to reproduce a bug. Otherwise, I will see you guys next weekend. Thanks for joining with the news. Like I said, please give me feedback on it. I love the feedback because I don't sit in your position, and I like to make this as entertaining and as useful as possible to you all. So, yeah. Anyways, have a fantastic rest of your week. I hope, or not rest of your week, future week. Have a fantastic week, and I will see you guys next week.